As Annie mentioned, my name is Shenuka, and I'm a small business consultant. I work with nonprofits and founders like yourself through my business called Shenuka Strategy. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll dive into the presentation. I've been working with entrepreneurs and small business owners for about 10 years, a little over 10 years. I got my business degree from the University of Saskatchewan. I'm in Saskatoon, which is Treaty 6 territory. And that's where I was exposed to entrepreneurship as a social concept and as a tool that, equity deserving communities and all kinds of communities can use to progress and, increase their economy. And so I did that. I did a general type of role where I saw all kinds of entrepreneurs in all sectors for about 5, 6, 7 years. And that was great. And then I moved on to supporting food entrepreneurs in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. And I did that for about 2 to 3 years. And then after that, I started my own company here. So, like I said, I'm so pleased to be here, and I hope that we have a good discussion. I think we will. I'm watching the chat, so if you just want to throw a comment in as we go through the presentation, you have something to say, you have a question, don't hesitate to interrupt me and turn your mic off. I'd love to, have a full discussion with you and answer any questions. And we're here till about 8 o'clock. I'll show you the agenda now. If my arrow will work. There we go. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So here's our agenda. We'll do a little bit of an introduction. I do want to get to know you more. I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll move on to brand development and understanding what branding is. Then we'll work through market research and developing our target market and our audience. And then we will discuss the marketing mix and some strategies that we can implement within our marketing mix. And then we'll discuss a little bit about campaigns. And then I'll leave some time for a discussion, questions at the end, and a summary at the end. And just so you know, we will do some exercises. Just occasionally, we'll take a pause and do some exercises. So if you need to just take a break or go to the bathroom or whatever you need to do, there will be some breaks in between the presentation. So because we're going to get through a lot of great stuff. Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is, in terms of your marketing strategy, there's several different ways to do your marketing strategy. It can be a single document, or it can be a part of a bigger plan. And so these components, so your marketing mix, your brand, market research, and your target market, information about your target market, will be building blocks of your marketing strategy. So you might have other pieces to your marketing strategy. Maybe if you're doing some kind of innovation, or, there might be other pieces to it, but the building blocks include your brand, the research, the target market information, and a marketing mix. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And when you actually go forth and start building out these components, there is no order in which you have to do them. If you wanted to start with your marketing mix, that's great. If you wanted to start with your brand, because that's calling to you, that's great. There's no order in which you have to do these things. And eventually you'll see how everything comes together. So to start, I would love to ask you a few questions, and we'll just use the chat because there's lots of us here and I want to hear from everyone. So we'll work through these questions one by one. And I'll get you to type in the chat if you can. If you can't answer because you're busy or you're eating or you're driving, or that's fine. But if you're able to answer these questions and we can get to know each other, that'd be awesome. So the first question, and if you want to just, give me a reaction using the emojis, hopefully all of you have access to that on your Zoom too. You can do that as well. So the first question is, do you have any skills or experience in marketing? Yes, no. If you want to elaborate, you can. So I'll give you a few minutes to type. All right. Awesome. Perfect. Bunch of newbies. Love it. A little bit. Yes. Okay. Perfect. I have lots of experience in marketing. Great. Wonderful. So those of you who do have a little bit to a lot of experience, feel free to chime in at any point. Like I said, there's several different ways to work through a marketing strategy. And it's great, since we're all here, we might as well share our knowledge if we're okay with that. So feel free to, challenge me or add what you'd like. It'll add to the discussion. So the next question we have here is, do you look forward to working on marketing in your business? Or is it difficult to work through your to-do list? So do you love it or do you hate it? Often we find, I'll give you a few moments to type. Often we find people are entrepreneurs are either, numbers oriented and they love the number side and they kind of stay away from the creative side, or we find that marketing is a strong suit and numbers fall behind. Either way, it's not enjoyable. I'm excited to learn. Great. Perfect. Others, I don't have my own business. Yeah. I don't love it. Yeah. Better if someone else did it. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. All right. And then my third question, I like it. Awesome. I love marketing, but I'm looking for ways to make it easier, definitely, to make it more efficient. I feel but excited to learn. Perfect. You're in the right place. Awesome. Okay. And then my third question is, if you do have a business or if you are thinking about starting a business, if you have a product or something that you want to offer your market, describe it for me in the comments and what stage of business you're in. So if you're startup or just you're in the idea phase, concept, or maybe you're in early growth, go ahead and describe that for me, please. Give you a few moments. And there's, the things that we're going to talk about today will be applicable to almost every stage of business and consumer good. Performer art service provider established. Oh, awesome. Okay. I work for a collaborative art store bringing artisan goods. Oh, sample stage of getting a clothing brand going. Okay, a mix of people. That's great. Looking at possibilities. Give you a few more moments if anyone else wants to chime in. Established for a small town hall. Some point, but someone to help lead and helping with others. But mine is just a startup. Okay. Perfect. Sounds good. So yeah, a variety of people, and that's great. I'm not looking to start, but I'm not looking to start a business right here. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, like I said, chime in. If you have experience, if you have background, if you have something to say, throw it in the chat. I'm watching the chat. I have it open here. Even if it's just a comment or something to add, feel free to participate and engage. And then my last question is, what would you like to learn today? What would you like to learn tonight? Not saying I can help you, but I'll try if I know anything specific. Go ahead. Okay. General knowledge, social media strategies, how to market and get people to join the cause. Yep. Something new and attractive. News. Hoping to learn how to target my audience and not reaching around people. Yeah, we'll definitely cover that. How to focus when you do several things. Yeah, perfect. Well, that gives me a great starting point. And like I said, well, how to grow organically. Yeah. We will leave 15, 20 minutes at the end of the presentation, at the end of the session, to have a chat. So if I missed anything, I'll try to remember to cover some of these things, and hopefully some of the concepts will come up. But yeah, we'll definitely leave some time to have a discussion at the end. So thank you so much for participating and answering my questions. It's great to just know who's in the audience and who's out there. So yeah, I appreciate it. So let's get started. So just going to take a drink of water. Got this huge water bottle. All right. So let's start with branding. And like I said, we're going to cover a variety of topics. You don't necessarily have to start with branding when you leave this presentation, and you start tomorrow or the next day when you work on your marketing strategy. Like, this doesn't have to be in the order, but for the purpose of the presentation, we'll go through it in this order. So branding, what is branding? It's a visual representation of your collective elements that speak to your customers. So the main purpose of branding is to make sales and to focus on a particular target audience. So, we're not speaking to everyone, and we're zoning in. Your brand will attract your audience, and your audience isn't necessarily your customers. But when we have creative businesses, we do have a wide variety of people who are maybe watching us, or just are inspired by us, or keeping tabs on our activities, but they may not be necessarily purchasing from us. From that audience, you might have 20% or 30% who are actually purchasing repeatedly from you. So can you tell me any other reasons why branding would be important for a small business? You can use the chat. Sometimes we don't want to work on these strategies, or it feels maybe too big or unimportant at this stage of business, but can we think of any reasons why it would be important? We'll give you some time to answer in the chat. Yes, identity. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, you can be recognizable in the market. Any other answers? Stand out. Yep. To grow. To avoid theft. Yep. Perfect. And our customers are not the only receivers of our brand. They're not the only people who are watching our brand or who are influenced by our brand. There are other stakeholders in our community or in our environment who are influenced by our brand, who have an impact on the customers. For example, employees. When you're job searching, or when you're posting a job, the HR department will often, tie in a lot of the branding elements that the job seeker sees. So, that's not necessarily a customer, but having the employee buy in right away into the brand will ultimately benefit the customer and help the sales pipeline, depending on what that person is doing. Another example would be investors. So if you're looking for money and if you're looking for financing, often a strong brand will help your cause. Do you get to decide how your brand is perceived? Often not. So we have lots of elements that we can control that help shape the image of our brand, but ultimately our customers and the public decide where our brand is positioned in the market relative to our other competitors. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's a lot you can control, but there's only so much you can control. So this is another reason why it's important from the get-go to start building a brand when you're starting a business, or when you're in a new phase of growth, is to reevaluate your brand, because it'll help that. I'm just looking at my notes here, make sure I got everything. Branding will also help you make decisions in the future when it comes to product lines and your website and social media ads. Maybe when you hire someone, or you maybe will contract a marketing firm out to do some of your social media or to help you with it. Giving them your brand or having something for them to work with will help in the consistency of the message when you actually go to post. So if, all your brand and your product, there's shades of blue, and then you go post something red, well, there's an inconsistency there. So, we would make sure that we're looking at blue instead of posting in red when your social media company takes over. And that way we're not confusing our customers. There are different areas of branding. So we have here on the screen, you have personal branding, product branding, and business branding. And we're going to go over each of these examples. We're going to go over each example, and then I'll give you a step-by-step, a really broad step-by-step as to how we would start developing our brand. Okay, and we'll do a little activity there too. Just change the slide. It takes a little bit of time. I don't know why it lags. There we go. So product branding refers to the actual product that your consumer is purchasing. So in the case of the examples here, you'll see Coca-Cola. The actual bottle has a ton of branding, if not all of the branding elements. There's a pair of earrings in the corner, the jewelry box, and the tissue paper, and maybe the ribbon will all have branding elements. The fabric of the material of the box, of the jewelry box, may impact how the customer views the quality of the jewelry. Nesquik, we all know that famous bunny bottle, right? That's impeccable branding on Nestle's part. And you can see with Coke and Nesquik the progression of their brands from 1950 to now. So you might see a CPG and a CG there in the corner. So CPG stands for consumer packaged goods, and CG stands for consumer goods. So consumer packaged goods are things that consumers run through quickly. Nesquik might be an example. And a consumer good is something that is more durable, like an expensive purse or a set of earrings. Okay, and the reason why I bring this up, that's the difference between them. From a branding perspective, we can view them in the same light. The reason why I bring them up is to talk about their packaging. So when we look at consumer packaged goods or consumer goods, which, those of you who are starting a business, you may be going into that. If you're starting a service-based business, you still would have some branding elements, but not necessarily product branding elements. You may have, certain letterheads or logos or symbols that, your client would see as part of your service. But if you have a product, then you will have packaging. And there's 3 levels. There's primary packaging, secondary packaging, and tertiary packaging. There might be more after that, but those are the 3 we're going to talk about today. So primary packaging is the actual vessel in which the product comes in, which is, the bottle of Coke or the jewelry box or the bunny bottle, or it might be, the tissue paper that they wrap this person. And then the other thing would be the secondary packaging, which often customers won't see the secondary packaging if you're buying something in the grocery store. But if you buy, let's say, a carton of Coke, then it would be like the cardboard that comes around all of the cans. And then you have your tertiary packaging, which, again, you may not see as the customer, but usually the warehouse or, the back of house would need that. And there aren't many colorful elements. The company's not going to spend, you're not going to spend a lot of money on color print. It's going to be a cardboard with a huge logo that communicates what's in the box to the warehouse guys. Okay, so those are 3 levels of packaging when you have consumer packaged goods or consumer goods. Any questions so far? Give you a minute to type. So like I said, we'll go through the other two areas of branding, and then we will talk about how to actually develop the brand, how we would actually come up with these ideas. Okay. So I don't see any questions, so I'll just move on. So here we have business branding or corporate branding, and it's fairly self-explanatory. Some of the reasons why we would invest in the corporate brand, like I said, was for stakeholder relations or employee relations. When it comes to corporate branding, this is where you have to, keep your pulse on what customers are saying about you and how they're responding to you and what they're doing with your product. People are so creative these days. I think people have always been creative, but they have access to different technologies and materials. And so we're able to create all kinds of things with our favorite brands. And so here we have an example of a guy who made a DIY backpack from this IKEA bag, which in its own right is iconic, and not because the brand, not because IKEA has pushed it on us. This is just a bag that you carry around when you're shopping in the store, and then you leave it. But the customers really loved this bag because to them it represented new things and it represented shopping for their home, and there was a level of excitement that IKEA unintentionally created with this bag. And so now that IKEA knows that, they're responding to people who maybe post the bag or who do DIY projects with it. There's also, actual fashion companies that have tried to replicate the brand, or sorry, replicate the colors and the style of the bag. So something to watch out for in terms of what customers are doing with the brand of your company. And it's not, like I said, IKEA probably didn't set out to have this, for like have this bag be so influential, but they caught on. And so that's my point, is they were able to catch on to that trend and forget what they thought in their strategy room, what they thought was going to succeed. And they just followed their customers' lead. Any questions? Okay. So the last area that a founder might consider in branding is your personal brand. So this comes into play primarily when you're seeking investment and when you're building a team, when you're building other executives or maybe your second in command, your leadership team. Your personal brand is an extension of yourself. It's not who you are. And as an artist, it's extra important to develop that personal brand. Your personal brand will also feed into the other two areas, so the product branding and your business brand. So it is important to be clear on what your personal brand is, and you don't necessarily have to, do a whole song and dance about it, but for your own sake, in terms of guiding business decisions and working with other people, it is important to start kind of thinking about it, because who knows, later on in the line you might find a need for it when you're on Dragon's Den or when you're doing something big that requires that is a big opportunity, which you will come across. Your personal brand will leverage that opportunity if you work on it now. And again, like I said, whether you like it or not, your customers are creating a perception of you, which is your brand. So you can either choose to participate in that creation of that image or not. Okay. And the sooner you do it, the better it will be. Yeah, and I'll explain this photo with Martha Stewart, who is, she's amazing, in her own right, goes to jail for tax evasion. And then her team spins it around. She starts associating with Snoop Dogg, who has his own brand, and takes this, what would be a bad stain on her reputation, on her what would be a otherwise perfect reputation, turns it around and develops a partnership with a huge name in R&B music. And there's a connection that their cooking show, exactly. So they had a cooking show. So, and I think it was very successful. So that's just a really good example. Martha Stewart is a good example of someone who had an impeccable brand, goes down the drain for, certain factors, certain forces, and then it picks back up again using those bad situations. It's really interesting. And again, it's not necessarily intentional, right? It's just we saw a trend and we went with it. Okay, so any questions about those three topics, those three areas? Any comments? Okay. So regardless of if you're developing a product or a service, um, your business brand or your personal brand, you can follow this easy methodology. There are different ways to develop a brand. This isn't the only way. And a lot of the times, if you are a creative person, you might just see your brand. You might just visualize something, and that's great. And you won't have to do a ton of creative work because you just see it. And if you can bring it to life, whether you can draw it out or use a graphic design software to create the actual tangible file so you can share it and communicate it, that's great. But if you're working with other people, maybe you have a partner or you're just not sure where to start, then this is where we could start. So the first piece is to create a word association list and a mood board. So a word association list is a brainstorm list of words that you want people to think of when they think of your brand. So let's think back to some of those examples from my previous slides. So Coca-Cola, what words do come to mind when you think of Coca-Cola? You can, if you have answers, you can use the chat. So some words that come to my mind: fresh, cold, sweet, pizza, refreshing, right? So those are the words, and Coca-Cola might want me to associate those words. Some other words, some maybe negative words that come to mind are just, the challenge with recycling, things like that. That might also come to mind too, and that's okay. It can be positive, it can be negative, but you do want to have positive words that you want your customer to associate. And then the mood board is a collection of images that represent the sense of your brand. So back in the day, traditional marketing would literally go around, travel, take pictures, look at their community, look through magazines, look through print, paint. They would literally create material and have a poster board of different things with different color palettes that inspired the brand or inspired the product or inspired the redevelopment of the business brand. And it wasn't necessarily related to the product or related to the actual business. It's just something that inspires what we're trying to achieve and inspires the voice of the brand. So now digitally we can use a variety of tools. We can simply open up a Word document and go through Google Images and Google words that come to mind using our word association list or other words of things that we love, of brands that we love, people, celebrities, styles that we're already drawn to, and put them all together. Okay. You can also use Pinterest. That's a good tool for startups too when you're trying to think of some marketing and you want to look at some visuals and look at how people are doing things creatively. That's a good place to go if you want to save things per se, right? So once you do that, you'll also need to think of your mission, vision, values, and goals. So you might do this before you do the word association and the brainstorm and the mood board, or you might be doing them together. That's okay. That's its own presentation, going through your mission, your vision, and your goals. But the reason, again, why it's important is that it does enforce the brand. So, if your vision is to make sure the world is like in the term in Coca-Cola, they don't want anyone to be thirsty. Like their whole thing is like everyone, we don't want anyone to go be thirsty. So that's going to feed the brand. Okay. Same with their vision, same with their goals. Particularly with goal setting, what do you feel like is an appropriate budget? How many customers would you like to reach? What level of sales would you like to achieve? These are the goals that not only permeate your marketing strategy, but also other areas of your business. So we can talk about that too, but it's, like I said, it's not necessarily a marketing activity, but it's related to your brand. Once we have our mission, our values, we figured out our color palettes and some images that inspire us, and we have some words that we want associated with our brand, we can start crafting a story. And so people always, this is a difficult thing to do, which it is. It is difficult to communicate a story properly. But we're not necessarily asking for, your life story. We're asking for something that is digestible to your customer and relatable. So, for example, if I'm selling a celery salt Caesar, like a Caesar drink, like the salt rimmer, if I'm selling that as a product, maybe the story associated with that product, not necessarily the founders or the business brand, but the product itself, is that, oh, we were at the lake and, we just weren't happy with any of the other salt rimmers, and so we decided to create our own, and we love this one, and now it reminds us of our family, and it reminds us of the lake and good times and spending time with each other. That's the story. That's just off the top of my head, basic, and then you would flourish it and elaborate it and make it stronger. But it could be something like that, or from a different perspective, it would be maybe about the founder. So something like, my dad has hypertension. So, but he loves a Virgin Caesar. He loves just the look of the Caesar. He loved just like having one. But we needed to find a salt-free salt rimmer. So, but we couldn't, there wasn't one on the market that was suitable for his condition, or that supportive of his condition. So we created one. And, now my dad can enjoy his Caesars with us. And, we have our family Caesar recipe. Here's the non-alcoholic one. Here's the alcoholic one, right? That's from a different perspective, same product. And it doesn't have to be something like, it does have to be relatable, and it does have to be impactful, but it doesn't have to be big and crazy. It can be something small. It could be something that's simple. Does that make sense? Awesome. This goes well with the perfect. I'm happy. Thanks to your coordinator. So after we create our story, we're going to refine our voice and our tone. So from our word association list, we might have used words like friendly, professional, maybe something like informative. You might have these keywords that describe the voice and tone that you want to use. And so that your story, you can start there. You can craft your story in a way that reflects the voice and tone of your product or your brand. So in my salt rimmer example, we're at the lake and we're having fun and we're with our family. So the tone is fun and casual and spontaneous, right? It's simple. It's, maybe if I was selling the salt-free salt rimmer and I was selling it to maybe like a health food store, then I would adjust my tone a little bit, which is okay, to be a little bit more informative, right? Because there's just that health component to it that will hit better in the sales strategy versus being fun and casual, and talking about diabetes may not be have the same impact as being more serious and more professional about it when you go do the sale. So yeah, so you might have some different voices and tones depending on your target market. Okay. And then from there, you'll be able to develop some visual characteristics. So we call these assets. Something like a logo would be one example, your color palettes, anything that is print material, social media ads, like templates. If it was your actual product, you would maybe decide on the shape of the bottle or the material of the box. Like I said in my earlier example of the earrings, the material of the box may impact the customer's perception of the quality of the earrings, even though it's the same earrings regardless. We put them in a paper bag, it's going to be the same earrings. But again, it comes down to the perception. So those visual cues will continue to reinforce the brand, the perception that you want. All right. Any questions? Any comments? Anything you want to add? Now I want a Coke, sorry. All right. Well, I'd love to do a little workshop with you, a little workshop exercise with you all. So does everyone have access to just like a Word document or a Word editor and a search like Google or something like that? Yeah. I'm just looking at you nodding. Yes. Okay. So however you want to do it is up to you, but my recommendation is to open up a Word document or something that you can type in and begin brainstorming your word associations and just type them out. And then if you'd like, I'll give you 10 minutes to do this exercise, or maybe a little bit less, maybe 5 minutes probably. And then if you want to find some images on Google to add to your document, that's a good start. You don't have to do the images if it's a little bit more cumbersome, depending on what device you're on, but you can open up a notes app and do it that way. So however you'd like, do the brain association, or sorry, do the word association list for sure, the brainstorming, because that's important, and come up with as many words as you can. So any questions about the instruction? Okay, perfect. So I'll give you some time. We'll do 5 minutes on the clock. So we'll come back at 6:45. To share. Anyone who would like to share their findings? If you don't, that's okay.
Sure, I will. I
Go
always
ahead,
do.
Roy.
I always
Thank
do.
you.
Everyone's waiting. Go on, Roy. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. Hi, Shenuka. This is really really nice. Branding had me thinking because thinking what am I gonna brand here? There's like a lot of us do different things, like how am I, but then I just thought, oh, while you were talking about, I started to think about my band and like how I've sort of coming up, we started this new band, but it's not really like we haven't really got a good name, or we don't really know what brand or image that we're going to have, or if we ever go towards touring, maybe we should think about actually sort of branding ourselves, especially if we make videos and stuff like that. So here's my words: shanty, Hudson Bay, family friendly, Northern Canada, rustic,
Hmm.
multi-instruments, friendship, old times, warming up, crowd cheer, stories, poetry, inclusive, empathetic, drug, alcohol free, family, community.
That's great. I mean, I felt that in my bones. Like I was like, yeah, I'm connecting to you for sure with those words. So that's great. Yeah,
Good.
thank you for sharing. And I agree with your band, definitely, having a brand image, that's a fun project to do, a band brand. Um,
Yeah.
so definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else want to give it a go? Going once. My Cassandra says my word association was creativity, unique, handmade, original, the North, perfect. Those are wonderful words. I like the North. Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing. And I hope that activity gave you some direction and a starting point in terms of, how we start to develop the brand. Like I said, the next piece of this would be to integrate your mission, your vision, your values, and your goals into your mood board to craft that story. So if you don't have those components yet, you might want to work on that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's even just a draft of those components. Then you can progress through what your actual brand looks like and eventually come to the fourth step, which is the creation of the visual elements. All right. Any last comments on this? Okay. Well, we'll move on to our next topic, which is research. So when we think about researching idea or researching our business, the main reason why we do this is to uh, properly inform our budget. So we might have a set amount of money that we can spend on marketing strategies, whether they be branding activities or sales activities or social media ads or social media posts. We only have so much money. There's only so many things we can do, only so much time we have. So the research helps us direct where our energy should go and more specifically where our budget should go. Okay, and in addition to that, the research will help carve out a target market, so a primary market, who are going to be speaking through our branding, and it also might help illuminate a secondary or a tertiary market, so other groups of customers that we might be interested in speaking to through our marketing. Okay, so first, I just want to bring your attention to the list in the colorful column. So Statistics Canada, Statista, Google Scholar, Google Trends, and Google Maps are all relatively free tools that you can use to put together some market research. So Google Maps specifically for competitive information, because there's lots of great competitive information in terms of customer reviews on Google Maps. So that's exclusively what you would use that for. But Google Trends, Google Scholar are great. Google Scholar has academic and industry research papers. Google Trends will give you obviously trending analysis information, what's happening, what are people talking about. Statista is the only one on this list that you would probably have to pay for, but they do have some free reports, and they're great for industry information. So if you're looking at anything, like you're looking at what kind of chips are people buying these days, what brands of chips, they might have some information on that. And the Statistics Canada is entirely free, and they have some great reports as well. Tons of information on there. So my recommendation is, if you know what you're trying to look for, if you have the specific, inkling of what you're trying to research, then you can email them and say, hey, I'm looking for this information. Do you have it? Can you send me a report? And they're usually pretty good at just directly finding the information for you and giving it to you, versus you going through their website, which contains a lot of great information, but yeah, it's cumbersome. So you can do that. And then there are other paid sources of information as well that are secondary. And then you also have your own primary information that you've collected by interacting with your customers. So your own primary customer data might be beneficial as well. So there's 3 areas of research when we're in business that we want to kind of keep continually keeping our eye out on. So the first area, the first column there, is your industry research, which includes your competitors and complementary industries and substitute industries. So competitors are direct competitors. So the Pepsi to Coca-Cola, direct competitors. Your industry would be the sectors around you that you need to survive. So packaging would be a huge one. If you're in, the soap making space, then something like glycerin would be really important. So not necessarily complements, which are products that your customer uses in tandem with your product. Your industry research will focus on not only your industry, but the peripheral sectors around you that might impact your profitability. Okay, and like I said, complement products or complement industries are industries that your customer needs or maybe desires in order to fully experience your product. Okay. So if you were a band and you had a vinyl, because that's really popular these days, your customer will have to have a record player. Or they don't have to. Some people buy vinyl just display, which is awesome. But that would be a complement product, would be the actual record player. Any questions on that? Your substitutes are products that are not necessarily competitive, but they can replace the need. They can fulfill the need in your customer. So for example, in the case of Coca-Cola, Booster Juice, or even water would be a substitute for Coca-Cola. So it's different. It's a different product, and they have different inputs to create that product. But at the end of the day, the customer is quenching their thirst, right? So that's essentially the need that they need to survive, or that they're trying to fulfill. Okay. I think that's good. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention on the competitor piece is to analyze your competitors, you can use a tool called a zigzag analysis, which basically lines up your competitors in one column, and then you'll have attributes of your competitors' brands that you're going to compare and contrast. So, for example, you have competitor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then across the top you would have like color palette or logo design, price point, location, um, you know, perceived target market. So yeah, you might have different attributes that you want to compare, and then you can build out the spreadsheet. You can build out this matrix essentially, where you can see where all your competitors fall in terms of these branding attributes. And you might find that, okay, all of our customers, or sorry, all of our competitors are using blue in their logo. Why is that? Like, is there a psychological reason why they're using blue, or is it just a coincidence? You can look into it. Should we use blue as a competitive is that an industry standard, or should we be different and use red or pink? Like, what is the reason behind this blue logo? So you can get into the nitty gritty and analyze your customers in order to really differentiate yourself. So yeah, it's called a zigzag analysis. And you can do it, you can write it like on a piece of paper, you can do it in an Excel document, and then you just save the document, because you'll probably come to it maybe later on. Okay. The middle column here illustrates forces that make up our operating environment. So they're not necessarily directly related to our business or our product type, but they influence the profitability and the feasibility of our business. So if you look at the first letter of each of these words, PESTEL, the acronym spells out PESTEL, which is the name of the tool. So political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal forces that might impact our businesses or our products' profitability. So politically, what's going on in terms of the political party of the day? Do they have a stake in our industry? Do they care about it? Are they trying to reduce its activity? Are they trying to increase its activity? Things like grants and different incentives, tax breaks, kind of speak to what the political party thinks of different industries. Sometimes there's no impact at all, like it's net zero, because our product just isn't, that controversial or that important to the political party. But, if we are in something a little bit more significant, like, oil and gas or energy per se, the political party will influence how successful, how profitable that sector is, right? And the businesses within it. That second piece is the economic factors. So this includes the unemployment rate, the level of disposable income your customers have, other financial priorities, so the mortgage or kids' education, other competing factors. We want to make sure that we're operating in an environment that people do have, enough cash to pay for our product at the price point we want to offer it at. Okay. And that we're not coming out with a product that isn't economically in tandem with what's going on, which kind of speaks to the social, the next piece. So when we say socioeconomic, this is what we mean. So, if people don't have disposable income, you see it right now, it's happening right now when people don't really have money for groceries and people are struggling, right? Like, it's happening right now. So that impacts our purchasing power. It impacts how we view brands. We're not going to spend money on luxurious brands, or there will be a dip. We're not going to necessarily spend money on things that we don't need because we have to save for groceries or we have to save for our rent. And that's going to shape the social opinion of any particular industry. Okay. We saw it a lot with vehicles. People had a strong social opinion of what was going on with vehicles in Canada during COVID and a little bit after that. And it impacted the way that vehicles were priced, just the perception of the lack of vehicles that were available to purchase impacted the price. So the next section is technological. So we need to look at what equipment or what software or what efficiencies we can implement into our business. And, usually there isn't anything that nets zero unless it's something like you're misusing the technology. The second last piece is the environmental. So what are the environmental impacts of our business? How will that be perceived by our customers? And then the legal piece is, legally, are we allowed to do this? Okay. And I know it doesn't necessarily play into branding and this, like, how is this going to help my social media strategy? Well, it does, because it gives you an idea of what's going on in your consumer's world that isn't directly about your business, because your consumer's world is much bigger than your product and your business, right? There's other things that are going on in their life that impact if they're going to purchase from you or not. So the more you know about how their lives are going and their livelihood will help you sell to them. And not only that, but offer a product that is beneficial to them or a service. The last piece, that last column, illustrates the components of your target market. So your demographics, psychographics, and sociographics, okay? So this is a big slide. So I'll give you a minute to just review it. So the slide before, we covered 3 areas of general business research. So when we have an idea, we have a product, those are the factors, those areas are what we're going to cover. And then within the target market, we have 3 more areas of research. So we have the demographics, which refers to hard and fast factors about ourselves, like our age, our location, our income, our education, our race, and other, like our sexual orientation and our gender identity, that have, we can actually say, like, okay, this is how we would identify, this is how old we are, this is how much education we have. We put ourselves in a particular category and, asked to be sold to because of those demographics. So if we're in a particular age or a particular income bracket, we want specific products, right? We don't necessarily want products that don't fit our age range or fit our income bracket. Okay. Psychographics, these refer to internal processes. So things like our interests, opinions, goals, fears, and how we seek information. Our sociographics refers to our external behaviors. So things like how we interact with our community, how we communicate generally, how we like to communicate, attitudes, our values, and our culture. Okay. So all 3 of these categories, plus whatever existing customer data you have, will come together to form something called a customer profile, which you'll actually write out, outlining your ideal customer based on these factors. Okay. Yeah. Any questions? We're going to do an activity that's a little related to this. So I know it's a lot of information. We'll move on. Okay. So just some of you don't have the product or don't necessarily aren't going into business per se, but just kind of think of a product that you like, that you use, or think of the product that you would start if you were to start a business. And let's build out a draft client profile or customer profile. So, we can start with this. We would do the research, and then we would augment our client profile or our customer profile based on the research that we find. So we always have a perception of what our customer is. And from a creative point of view, I think it's better to do it from your brain first and then reinforce with that research, versus in other sectors, they might do it the other way. They might find all the research first and then decide. But as an artist or as someone there's a bit of creativity in your product, you don't necessarily want to remove that connection. So you can start always from your visions and then reinforce with research. Okay. So that's why we're going to do this activity first, because you can go back after the session is over and go through some of those websites that I gave you and see if you can find some information that supports your client profile. Okay. And when I say client, I mean customer, I mean buyer, I mean audience member, I mean anyone who you are potentially, doing business with. So here we have the map, and there's 5 areas. So that first area is the demographics, age, gender, family, career, location, income. The second section is your decision-making processes, which is those psychographics factors. And then we have some goals and desires. Okay, and then here we have some of the sociographic stuff. So activities, daily habits. So go ahead and take some time to just answer these questions. You can give your person a name. So you can call them Alex, and Alex is 31. He's lives in Regina. He makes 60,000, and he's in information technology. Okay. He likes to Google information. He doesn't like to talk about his decisions. He likes to just find his own information. Okay. He's not so sensitive to price because he doesn't have a wife or kids right now, so he's not necessarily considering that. But so he has a little bit of disposable income. He's got a good job. He knows there's lots of job growth. So you can literally put these kinds of statements into your customer profile. Really build out your person as a real human. A few more minutes. So we're just doing one client or one buyer profile right now, but like I said, you might have a secondary market or a tertiary market, and you would do a profile for those markets too. Give you one more minute. If you were to put this in a business plan, which you should, it might be a page per market. So it'd be like a one pager describing your person. All right. One more minute. We've always have a very hard time narrowing down what age group to target. Okay. All right. Well, does anyone care to share? Anyone? It's okay. Oh, go ahead.
Can share. I'm the one that said in
Okay.
the chat, I always had a hard time with age,
Mm-hmm.
demographics in general, because obviously, you want everybody to know about your product and have the opportunity to have it. But I guess what I'm doing is I'm trying to picture maybe the average person that comes into our storefront, but it's still difficult. So I said, this is Beth. She's 35 years old, female. She's a teacher. She has 2 kids. She lives in Split Lake. She makes 55,000 a year, which is probably way off. She shops by um, she shops by hearing things through friends, so word of mouth.
That's
Um,
great.
she sees value in visual and performing arts, and her goals are to get youth more confident in sharing their work. And yeah, her typical day is, drive to work, teach, get supplies for teaching her classes, go home and cook a good meal.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing. So in terms of your like narrowing the age group down, do you have any existing customer data on that for existing customers? Have they ever disclosed their age range?
Yeah, no, that's not something we really collect for data. So,
Yeah, you could just find a way to work it in through some means. You could even just be like, hey, we're just collecting some information about our customers, like do a customer feedback,
mhm. Okay.
and collect it that way. Because if you do have a set of customers already, I would definitely take some time to find out some demographic information about them. And what I'm hearing is that you probably have a wide range of people coming into the spot, but
Yeah, pretty
yeah, which
much.
is great. And then so maybe you might find a couple different markets, right? You might find a particular age range that has a particular affinity to a specific product line. You know, you're finding that they're buying a particular thing, whereas a different age group is buying a different product line, which is it would be interesting for you to know, right?
Okay.
So you could consider using like Google Forms. Google Forms is free.
Yeah.
It's a free, yeah, market research or sorry, like survey development tool. So
Mhm.
try something like that. Um, and then aside from that, you know, if you were starting from scratch, we could work with millennials and Gen Z because they have the most purchasing power right now. So that would be one place to start because who has the most money?
Right. Yeah. And then when
Yeah.
you were saying that, I was thinking it is usually probably the older people that buy the really expensive framed art and that stuff. And then the younger people are just mostly instruments and instrument supplies.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting to know for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could do if you feel that maybe a digital survey doesn't work, then even in person, you could
When
just
they
say, hey,
come
we
into
just
the
have a few
store.
questions for you. Like, yeah,
Okay. Okay. That's good.
thank you for sharing.
I
Anyone
like
else?
yours there, Cheryl. Your Cheryl, I'd I just felt like I knew this person after reading that. It was it said she said her customers in the early 20s, male, no family except parents and siblings, University of Northern Manitoba, low income earner but gets support from family, does not decide on purchase very rationally. He has a rich taste, name brand items, good quality, no goals at this time, spends on what he wants and likes to play golf, drink and go on dates. So like she's describing someone she probably knows there. No.
That's
That's,
okay.
oh, sorry, Cheryl. I butted in. I didn't get a camera on. Can I just
Did
say
you want to?
also just say something about how we like relating to this like to our brand as Imagine Northern because we're currently like building websites and eventually have all of our Northern artists on this website and really trying to actually create a Northern Manitoban arts brand overall really that we're all going to be representing and my customer was maybe someone like 33-year-old male, maybe no family, like a sales rep in New York City, or someone who's coming up here from the States on holiday who wants to buy a piece of art. And that's a lot of the time that is our customer, and they're kind of hard to pin down and to do a survey on because they're just turning up in Churchill where people and other places in the north. You know, they're
Right.
coming on tours.
Turnover.
We're not getting the data from them. They're just coming and sweeping through and spending money, but we do have an idea of who they are. And they're the people that want a bit of sometimes a little bit of a status. They want to have that hand painted polar bear or something on their wall back home, or they're really interested in art and they really want to take something home with them. And then they're off to Africa the next
Mhm.
week, and they're collecting things from around the world. So maybe sort of something just to keep in
Mhm.
mind of a lot of the time for our specific audience here. That is our customer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, you might find some interest in looking at just general tourism data. Um, there might be so not necessarily your customers per se, but just generally the industry, what's going on, right? Like, you know, how old are these, how much money are people spending these days um, on short-term trips or, you know, spontaneous trips, like however you would describe the experience of people coming in that is your customer. If they are more spontaneous and you know not as long term in one spot, they kind of go to different spots. There might be some information on that, just how they think and you know what their parameters are, and there might be some information on just souvenirs and and how they collect memorabilia, and just, and for all of you, if none of us are Coca-Cola, they care a little bit more on their age, their demographics, and the accuracy and details of their information. But like, as the founder, as the startup founder, you do inherently keep track of that information in the back of your head, who's coming in and who's buying from you. It's just a matter of being able to translate that to paper and like confirm it. So it's okay if like, your customers aren't able to fill out a survey. That's fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. You'll still be able to create, communications with them. But yeah. All right, well, let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this slide. Because I do want to get through some of the other stuff. So we've talked about branding, we've talked about market research, and we've talked about developing how to develop our target market, how to understand them in terms of their demographics and their psychographics and sociographic characteristics. So once we have that, we can start developing our marketing mix. So has anyone heard of the marketing mix before? Yeah. Type in the chat if you have worked with it before. No. All right. Okay. Awesome. Well, the marketing mix is a tool that we use to develop the marketing strategy and to put some pieces together. So it's comprised of 4 areas: the product, the price, the place, and the promotion strategy. One message, the 4 P's of marketing. You got it. Yeah, the 4 P's. So when we have our brand and when we have all our market research, we're able to do this. So each of these pieces, the product, the price, the place, and the promotion, all have their own strategies. And together they form our marketing mix. So the first piece is the product. So when you're writing your business plan or you're writing your marketing strategy or you're trying to communicate your marketing strategy, you would have these areas, okay? So we're going to take some time to actually write out some of the pieces to our marketing mix. And everything we're doing today is draft, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but I just want you guys to have something down on paper. So in our business plan, if we have one product, we're selling one product, maybe it's this maple syrup here. And we have an idea of how we want the packaging to look. We know it's maple syrup, so we know that there's certain packaging that will preserve the product and some packaging that will damage the product, like clear glass, is not as good as the tempered or the colored glass and these plastic bottles here. So, if we know that, then that would go into our product description. The actual design, however we want. So this bottle is, it's wide, it's kind of short, it's got the red top. We're actually going to be describing the visual elements of our product packaging and what the product looks like. You also might include the features and the benefits of your product in this section. So the features include things like in a cold, glass of Coke, a feature would be that it is cold or that it is sweet. That's a feature of the product. A benefit is that it quenches my thirst or that it tastes really good with pizza and that brings out nostalgia in me and that makes me feel good. It's not necessarily that the pizza goes well with the Coke. It's just the memory that's associated makes me feel good. That's a benefit, which is different than the feature. We often make purchases based on the benefits that the product brings. But when we're marketing, trying to, put together a strategy, we often focus on the features. So when we're developing our strategy, let's think of it from the benefits point of view that our customer is looking for. Okay. If you are in a band, and a benefit would be that the customer maybe or the listener is trying to escape their real life, or they're trying to learn a song from you, or they're trying to be inspired by you. Those would be benefits. A feature would be the genre of music or the aesthetical look of the brand. Okay. So your features and benefits are important to know when it comes to developing that strategy, and it is directly related to that product. Okay. The second P is your price. So the amount of money the customers are willing to pay for the product or the service that you offer. And of course, it directly affects the company's profitability, therefore influencing consumer perception. So if you have a price that's, lower than your competitors, there might be a perception that your customers build based on that. That may not necessarily be true. You might have the same quality product across the board, regardless of price, but the customer might think, oh, it's a cheaper product, so it must be lower quality. So think about that too. In the colorful section, we have different pricing strategies. And I'm just going to go back to that slide that I skipped. So when we're determining a price, it's a very difficult task. And there's different ways you can do it. You can do it from the top down, which is looking at the cost of your materials and saying, and how much money you need to make, because everyone has a minimum amount of money that they need to take home, right? So you can start from there. Say, if I sell however X number of products at this price, I'll be able to make this much in personal income. You can start, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to look at it from a population point of view. So I have some numbers here. They're not necessarily accurate, but just for the sake of the example, we'll go through it. So, and the reason we do this is because we want to make sure that our price fits into our marketing mix, right? So this is actually more of a financial activity or an operational activity, but it directly influences our marketing. So that's why I want to talk about it today. So the population of Manitoba is around 1.35 million, and women aged 45 to 60, according to Statistics Canada, in Manitoba is around 300,000. From some industry research, 15% of Canadians have a gut issue, have a severe gut issue. So not something that they can manage on their own, but a severe gut issue that they're going to the clinic for, they're going to their doctor for, they have medication for. So if we take our sample size of 30,000 women, we can maybe say, if there's assumptions here, of course, but that's okay, that 15% of this 30,000 women have a gut issue, potentially, okay? So that would mean 45,000 people from this 30,000 people. And maybe our product, I'm sorry, I should say that I picked the gut issue thing because I was drinking a probiotic kombucha at the time. So, that product speaks to people with gut issues, right? Some of the branding was around that, was talking about that. On the bottle, I mean. So yeah, so say my product is this probiotic kombucha that I'm drinking. And so now I have a market of around 45,000 women in this age range and I just picked an age range, right? We could do this for other age ranges too. And if I charge each one of them $5, my market share per year, my market share is around that 225,000 mark. Of course, that's not how it's actually going to play out in real life. We're going to have a portion of that market buy our product repetitively, and a portion of that market never try our product ever, and then a portion of that product maybe buy it once or twice. So it's not that we're going to sell to everyone, but again, it's just to give us an idea of how big of a market or how small of a market we're dealing with. So here I say 20% may buy from this 45,000. Okay, so that's 9,000 people, again, times $5 for the price. Out of thin air, I picked a price point. So I'm looking at $45,000 per this sector. So not my total. This is just, if I was to target specifically women in this age group in this location in Manitoba, then this would be how much money I would make to start, maybe. Some of the strategies that I would implement would be, maybe going to some fitness classes that targeted women in that age range too. Or maybe I would go to some doctor's clinics that's focused on women's health and focused on, women who are aging, like menopause and that kind of thing. So you try to find your competitors, or sorry, not your competitors, your complements, who you can, start that marketing strategy with. Okay. Does that make sense? Any questions? It's one way. It's not the only way to think of your market share, but it's one way to break it down. Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So here now, we can play around now that we have that formula or that way of doing things. We can play around with the price. So I was using a $5 price point, but I can, now that I have that idea and those numbers set in stone, or drafts, I should say, I can play around with $5, $10, and if I feel like my competitors are offering $10 or their products are priced at $10, then okay, I have a little bit of room. Maybe I could price my product at $9 and still make a profit, or I could price it at $12 and develop my branding strategy, develop my marketing strategy to be a more luxurious product and sell to maybe private clinics or like private health clinics instead of public health clinics, or go to more boutique level gyms like beautiful yoga studios versus Planet Fitness, right? So you can see how that price point, where you do need to play around with the price point before you do any of the price strategy in the marketing mix, because it does have that perception. Whether the quality is high or low doesn't matter to the customer. There's still a perception that's built. Okay, so that's kind of why you have to do those two activities in tandem, so you can figure out which strategy is best. So let's go back to this column of pricing strategies here. So you have your cost plus, which is your costs, plus a markup, so between 15, 20, 100%. A lot of businesses do this at the start. Then there's competitive, so based on what your competitors charge, and you would find this information out through that zigzag analysis that we talked about earlier. Then you might price skim, so you set a high price and then lower it, which we see in technology a lot. You might implement price penetration, which is setting a low price to enter a competitive market and then raise it, which a lot of consumer packaged goods implement, like food. You'll see them coming in at a really low price, and then taking over the market and then raising it after a year or so of operating. Value-based, the price is based on what the customer believes it's worth. So you see this in vehicle sales a lot. And then bundling would be pairing or bundling multiple products together to offer a value-based price at a single price. So you see this in cable, television, internet, phone, that's price bundling. Okay, so any questions? So just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip this activity, but if you were actually going to start a business and you did need to play around the price, you did need to figure it out, those are the tools that you could use. Okay. So yeah, we'll skip this activity just for time. So the third P is your place. So your distribution includes points of sales and channels that help transport your product to different points of sales. So this can include retail locations, online platforms, and the associated logistics with shipping and transportation. Okay, so you might have a direct distribution strategy, which is direct to the consumer from the brand. There's no intermediary. Or you might implement intermediary where you have a third party, such as a wholesaler or a retailer. Then you might implement a dual strategy where you use both direct and intermediary. And then you have to choose if you want to do intensive, selective, or exclusive. And this kind of comes back to your brand. So intensive is selling through as many channels as possible. Selective, selling through a certain number of channels, and exclusive, selling through one. So if you do want to give off the, vibe of being luxurious or being exclusive, then obviously you'd sell through one or a few channels. But if you wanted to increase or expand the access of your product, like for example, Coca-Cola has a dual distribution strategy and an intensive distribution strategy, right? But Jones soda, if you guys remember Jones soda, it's that clear bottle with, they don't do intensive, they do selective, okay? And they do intermediary. So you might decide to switch as your business grows. But if you're starting up, you're usually direct to consumer and you're usually intensive or selective. Okay. Sorry, Just let the PowerPoint go. Okay. We'll skip that activity too. The reason why there's lots of reasons why your distribution strategy is important from an operational and a financial point of view, which we did not cover at all. But from a marketing point of view, again, it comes back to accessibility. So you want to make that process, the sales process, after the customer has decided that they want to purchase, as easy as possible. You don't want any kind of cumbersome issue when it comes to them purchasing the product, okay? Because they've already decided if they're in the place, if they're seeking out how to buy the product, they've already made a decision that they want to buy the product, if that makes sense, okay? So the goal from a marketing point of view, in terms of your place, is to make the sales process as easy as possible for the customer, okay? Because it'll affect the brand. Okay, so the last P is your promotional strategy, which is big P, okay? And we're gonna get into it. So the promotional strategy is the mix of activities used to increase your product awareness, to increase sales, and to communicate the features and the benefits of any of your offerings, okay? So you might do a corporate promotional strategy where you're just, trying to increase the awareness around the brand itself. But more often than not, you're going to spend your promotional budget on promoting specific products, okay? Products that bring in the most cash or that are the most popular. Your promotion will usually focus on that. Unless you have to do some kind of some kind of corporate image campaign, which we see a lot in the big corporate world, where companies just put out an ad with their logo on it with no reference to a product, usually means that something bad happened and they're maybe doing a little bit of PR. But if you see something with like the big back, for instance, McDonald's, for example, there's McDonald's right there. That's more intentional, right? That's obviously they want to promote their product and they want to have a positive perception, but corporate image campaigns are usually not necessarily in this promotional mix here. When I'm talking about promoting specific products or specific services, okay? So we're going to go over each of these tools here. So we have advertising, personal selling, sales, placement, guerrilla marketing, sponsorship, PR, content, and digital marketing, okay? So if you're a small business, you're probably going to be implementing 1 to 3 of these strategies, and your budget will reflect that. Okay. So nowadays, when we develop our promotional strategy, we'll have online, we'll have in person, and we'll also have a hybrid. It's very rare to see an organization just have one strategy, but you might. Like, there's always going to be some in-person interaction, even in the case of Amazon, which is 99% online. The interactions, the marketing, everything's online, but there's still an in-person touch point when you actually get the product, right? The delivery, there's still a real delivery driver for the most part that comes to your house. So there's still hybrid models that we have to think about when we're doing our promotional mix, okay? It's not just one or the other. Okay, so advertising. This is the most common form of promotion. And usually it's one way. So the consumer doesn't get a chance to engage or interact with the brand or the ad. It's usually just the brand or the product speaking to the customer, okay? So this is the example here is a billboard, but other examples of ads, maybe Google ads online, social media ads where you have paid ads going to your target market based on the decisions, like based on the things that you've selected in your social media account. So you can say, I want to target, women aged 45 to 60. I want to target women in Manitoba. And then I also want to target men in Saskatchewan. Maybe you can do that. So that would be social media advertising. Some other examples would be just swag, like, you have a water bottle with the logo of some company on there. That would be an example that a lot of small businesses use. Okay. You can, if you want, as we go through these examples, you can throw your own example in the chat just to share, because there's so many examples. You can please, if you have any ideas, you can share. The next area is personal marketing, so direct face-to-face or online one-to-one. Okay, we still see this in stores like clothing stores, car sales. You might see it in a specialty store, or something like that. Okay. Usually you have a set of materials that your sales agent refers to when they're selling to the customer. So there's a process that, the company has implemented as, again, it's a part of the marketing strategy, the sales pipeline, that the person who's direct selling would follow in order to make the sale. Okay. The third tool is sales discounts and incentives. So this could also include like loyalty programs with a punch card, something like that. In this, promotional tool, you want to be careful because you don't want to discount the perception of the product that the customer has. So if it's never gone on sale before, that might be something that you want to consider. You don't necessarily want to put your product on sale if it's never been on sale, because your customers might think, well, why? Why is the quality going down, or what are they trying to do? It might confuse them a little bit. But if you have a consumer packaged good that has a high turnover, like food, you might do a sale around Christmas or in the summertime, depending on where your product fits best. Like in the case of my salt rimmer, my Caesar salt rimmer, obviously in the summer, you might be doing extra promotions, extra discounts, or extra incentives, buy one, get one free, buy one, get one 25% off during those higher seasons, depending on what the product is, right? The fourth area, or the fourth tool, is placement marketing or influencer marketing. So placement marketing would be product placement in mass media and entertainment. So if you are in a band, or if you are an actor, or if you're, in entertainment, then product placement will definitely probably cross your path. And it is a great way to make money. You can get sponsorship from these brands and integrate them into your media. And then influencer marketing is on social media, obviously. And there's, 3 different ways. The first way is the influencer just simply using the product and not necessarily talking about the product. So they might just be drinking the can of Coke and just talking about whatever they talk about normally. The other area would be if they actually do review the product, or if they actually do talk about the product. And then the third would be the actual review. Okay, so the company sends the product to them and they actually review it versus using it without any review. So there's 3 ways that they can massage a product into their posts. Okay. Wouldn't you want to do sales on not peak times to bring in more sales? Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like, when are your customers looking to buy your product? You might want to price the product higher at those high times for sure. Or, again, if it's something that you want to get rid of because you have, you only have 3 months of the summer to sell this salt. And then in August, maybe you do the promotion, maybe you do buy one, get one because you want to, move the product. But yes, for sure, there might be a different strategy, depending on what exactly the product is, for sure. Okay. Guerrilla marketing is usually outside, and it usually is big. It's a billboard, but on something else. So in the case of Kit Kat here, we have park bench. It might be a billboard, but on a building versus a billboard poster, right? So guerrilla marketing usually involves something that's unique and different that makes the brand stand out. And it's usually a little bit more expensive. Okay. The 6th tool here is sponsorship. So this is a dramatic example, the Mercedes-Benz arena. That's more dramatic than I needed to be. But if you look around your community, you'll see examples of sponsorship, right? Community sponsorship. You go to your hockey rink or you go to any community center, there's probably some sponsorship going on from private businesses and small businesses. So that's another way to increase your brand. And you might do, cross collaborations with the company, and sponsor each other or support each other that way. Okay. And then the last 3 are PR. So that's more en masse, and that's more focused on the general public, not just only our customers. when we engage in PR, we're trying to control or augment public perception. So not just the customers, but maybe investors, employees, and just, yeah, like I said, the public. Okay. Public relations for small business is great if you can get the opportunity, because more often than not, it's free. So how I would do it if I was starting a small business is keep a list of news stations in my community. Usually you can find their email online fairly quick, fairly easy, because they want stories. They're looking for stories. Like news agencies and radio channels look for stories. So they usually have an email that's like inquiries or stories at ctv.ca or whatever it might be. So develop a directory of those emails. And whenever you have some big news, whether it's a new product line or a new album or, you know, whatever it might be, a new flavor, you can email them, be like, and say, hey, I have this new product. Like, here's my story. Like, this is my business. Like, if there's a spot, let me know. And sometimes you're not going to get picked up every single time because the news is happening, right? Like people are dying and people are sick, and those things take precedence, of course. But if you catch them on a good news day, you might be able to get, if someone bails, they have another story that just didn't pan out, you might be able to slip in there and get your story heard. So, and don't be discouraged by the lack of response for them, because like I said, the news moves so quickly. Don't be discouraged. The next time something new or exciting happens, message them. And then all you need is that one in to start developing that relationship with that organization or with that channel. And then from there, you have a PR contact. So, and again, like I said, it's free, it's en masse, there's a public component to it, and usually people eat it up. People eat the small business, stories and the small business products in our communities. They love it. So it is a segment that is attractive to a lot of the news stations in the prairie provinces, for sure. I've seen it happen a lot. So that's one strategy. Content marketing so the next section refers to information-based marketing. So we actually provide, education or information, knowledge that we share with our customer. So it might be information-based, like we're saying, okay, our salt-free rimmer, Caesar rimmer, this is how you make a Caesar. That would be excellent content, right? Or even just the recipe itself would be content. The thing with content is that it does take a lot of work. Usually you can create it, it's cost effective, but it does take a lot of time. So you do want to be strategic in the type of content that you're creating. Maybe it's only recipes, maybe it's only, if you're a band, maybe you're only doing like samples of songs or something, or you're only doing tours. Like you have some strategy towards the content. You don't want to document everything. You just develop some content here and there. And then content marketing or content promotions is a big sister to digital. So a lot of the content that we create, we will put, we'll publish on our digital channels. Okay, whether it is a video or an ad of some kind, a photo of some kind, digital will be a great platform to push that content through. Okay. So I know I'm talking so fast because I'm conscious of the time, but those are our 9 promotional tools that you can build strategies on. Okay. We can't necessarily say, okay, this is the best strategy for digital marketing, or this is the best way to do PR, or this is the best way to do your content marketing, because the market research that we still need to do for our businesses and some of the goal setting will play into how we pull these promotions through, okay, how we decide on how these promotions land. So today we're not going to be able to say, okay, this is what you might have some ideas, you might think of something right now, but for the most part, it takes some time to actually write out a strong promotional mix with the right strategies. Okay. We have 20 more minutes. So when we put our promotional strategies together, we'll create something called a campaign. And this is important when it comes to creative-based sectors, particularly more so than other sectors. because you usually will have one specific thing, like a specific product or a specific album or a specific piece of clothing, a specific purse that people are most attracted to. And when we build a campaign, i.e. the mix, the promotional mix, all of the different tools that we've decided form our campaign. Okay. So this is an Oreo campaign from 2020, COVID. And, you know, their market research, you'll see, their market research illustrated that there was a problem. There was conversations between parents and children can unintentionally escalate to arguments. So that would be something that their market research, whether it was primary research or secondary research, regardless, that was something that they came across. And that was the building block. That was the foundation for this promotion, for this campaign. So stay home, stay playful, keeping the conversation light, you know, join the playful network. And then there was some cross promotion with Xbox, with NHL. Okay. So it's not just the ad, there's in real life, there's actual strategies. Okay. And I wish I could give each of you a strategy, a marketing strategy. It just doesn't work that way. I wish we could leave here with, you know, a complete marketing plan, but it does take a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of brainstorming. And when we look to these other bigger brands, it'll help inspire us to see what they do. Okay. So I'm going to open up the floor. Thank you so much for listening to me. And if there's any, you know, clarification, any questions, anything you want to elaborate on, the floor is yours. Yes, I am available for coaching. Thank you. Any questions? I'm going to just scroll up through the chat, and I know you all added some things that you wanted to learn. Okay, so general knowledge, hopefully I was able to share some general knowledge with you. Social media strategies, okay. How to get started being set up. How to get started being set up to sell art, okay. So let's tackle those two. So social media strategies, the thing with social media is that your buyers are, the people that follow you are not necessarily your buyers. In fact, they're probably not. You know, you might have followers that follow you since, you know, the day you create your account, but have never purchased from you and never intend to. So social media doesn't give us a proper picture of our market share or the potential, because you have people on there that are just following for the sake of following more often than not. Okay. So if there's something like authentic and organic that's happening in the company, like for example, Rory, you were the one that asked that question. And in the case of you being in a band, you know, finding content along the way of doing whatever you're doing. So if you're, you know, recording an album, just capturing that content for the social media strategy, like, you know, basically behind the scenes, right? Yeah. And post it without necessarily trying to sell anything, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Keeping it as spontaneous and organic and obviously, you know, respectful, but keeping it as spontaneous as possible is the best strategy. And often, you know, if you just designate one person in the company to be that content keeper, as in like they're the ones taking photos and just keeping that, and you don't have to post, you take the photos, you take the content, you don't have to post right away. You can save that content for later when it actually fits, you know, okay, now we're going on tour. And now people are actually engaged and maybe they want to see the behind the scenes. But 6 months ago, when they hadn't heard our album, they hadn't heard our songs, they didn't care that they didn't necessarily care, right? They didn't know what was going on. It was just a picture of me in the studio. So that's one strategy, just to continue to capture content and be as like organic about it as possible. if they're a company that has sales, then that's great social media content. If you are selling food, then, how to use your product, that's great social media content. So like an example of my salt rimmer, right? So making the Caesars, or what else, is there anything else that we can do with the salt? Is there other things that customers can do with your product? Are other people posting about your product? That's share worthy. That's really important to see. Can, like, similar to influencer marketing, can I get, my friend to play my song in their post and maybe create some buzz that way? Or, organically, is there someone out there who's using my product, listening to my song and posting about it? Can I share that? Right. So those are some social media strategies. And it's just
I
so
think
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
we might be like if we just start like say my band or each of us in our Imagine Northern, like in our northern communities, working for our different groups, and even if we're starting that to get followers and we're starting this online presence, maybe then later on when there's something to sell, we've got the audience right there. If they're already clicking on us and they're already watching everything we're putting on, hey, also, do you want to buy this for $2? It might be like, bang, you get an automatic audience. And also,
Yeah,
if you get really popular, that could become its own income stream as your social
for
media,
sure.
YouTube revenue and whatnot.
Yep, definitely.
So I don't think you can lose
Exactly.
too much. You just got to put yourself out there with. It's just a bit of a pain to, and you got to fiddle around with some tools and things, and make yourself. It's not always
Yeah,
natural for us older
yeah,
people like getting onto social media, but yeah, you got
yeah.
to.
You do have to have a positive relationship with it, and not everyone necessarily does. So yeah, it is important to just, develop a good relationship with it. And that's why I say you don't necessarily want to invest your dollars and your energy into a social media strategy, because is the payoff really there? It's great to have a pop-in page and lots of followers, but does that translate to cash?
Hmm.
Right. So that's the question we need to ask with those strategies. How to get started as an artist to sell art. If one step would be to create an artist statement, which is similar to your mission, your vision, and your goals. Maybe a page on why you're an artist and what kind of art you create and your why. So, you maybe start there. If you do have a business name, then you'd want to register the business name and get your licenses all sorted out. Maybe you'd put up a website as well, to promote the art and to like display your portfolio. And then you might attend fairs, or you might go to different art galleries and art shops that sell art, and ask to either, consign with them or sell to them, like literally sell to them. Or is there a way that you can collaborate, maybe throw an event or, something like that? Exactly. Yeah, like your store. So yeah, but I think, art specifically, a website, an artist statement, um, and some partnerships with other artists or, retailers is a good starting point. And creating a profile on the Creative Manitoba website so you can be found. Yes, exactly. And yeah, exactly. Using your network, using your partnerships. Mhm. All right. Just going through some of these other questions. Um, how to gain a wider audience. I hope we talked a little bit about that in terms of your research, your market research. So it's not always about necessarily gaining a wider audience versus choosing the right people, right? In Canada, gaining a wider audience might mean moving to a different or expanding to a different location. So the same people, the same psychographic and same sociographic profiles, but the demographic profile might be a little different. So that's one way to gain a wider audience. Another way would be to expand your product line. So if I'm offering my Caesar salt, maybe I offer pickled asparagus, right? So expanding the audience through my product line, through my physical location. You can also gain a wider audience by coming out with a cheaper or less expensive product. So maybe I come up with a mini version of my salt rimmer, or I come out with a dual pack of my asparagus or my pickles, sorry, and my salt shaker, you know, changing up my product lines a little bit. Yeah.
And
But
how much do you, I
oh,
guess that's another totally like can of worms, or is my video going all weird there? Um, how much do you spend on marketing? Like how much do you spend on promotions? Because as an artist, we're not always like, I don't think any of us are thinking about, oh, what's my marketing budget this month? It's like, well, we might be working on grants, and then or we might be just be making a little bit of money, or we're lucky if we get a sale here and there. Like
hmm,
it's I don't know how to approach it. All this stuff costs money, or at least time.
yes, yeah, for sure it costs time. Um, if you do have a marketing budget, then it's really about assessing opportunities. So if there is a new album coming out, then it makes sense to put some money into promoting that album, right? You wouldn't just like throw out social media ads or put up a billboard or even invest the time if there wasn't something strategic happening, if that makes sense. Um, so that's one thing to keep in mind. And
Yeah.
then the second thing is, be lean. Like I am all for being lean. If, word of mouth will always be the most impactful marketing tool. So if you can create conversations with, whether that's just, okay, let's go to some local clothing store and have them, do you think maybe they could play the album while people shop, you know, and something that's just like really simple, grassroots, community-based, collaborative, um, and that will save on the pocket, right? Because if you can get other people to talk about your product, you're winning. You don't have to spend any money.
Hmm.
Like, I say that just as a joke, but like that is probably the strongest way that you can find some way to create conversations around your product, bringing your friends in, or like I said, finding some kind of collaborator. Um, like for example, I don't know what genre of music you're in, but maybe there's a clothing store that complements the genre. So, right, like some local clothing store that has like clothes and items that are reflective of your music. That could be a good collaborator. And maybe you can, set up a pile of 5 CDs at their till, and maybe they get, a couple bucks every time. Like I'm just saying things. Like I'm just trying
Yeah.
to be creative in terms of, because yes, I would way rather you be able to use free tools like word of mouth and partnerships versus spending money on social media ads, etc. So a
Well, it
website is a good
certainly, it
investment.
certainly, um, it certainly makes a difference. Like like Coca-Cola compared to like a startup business, like the marketing is enormously impactful as to how many sales they get and stuff.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
the
And it
same
doesn't
with
even
like
hurt. Yeah, exactly. And it's part of their business model, whereas when you're a
Mhm.
startup, it's not as much, right? So Coca-Cola does all that marketing so they can maintain their position. They've grown, they're at the top. That marketing is all about maintenance. Whereas when what we're talking about is more awareness building, right? So yeah. So definitely if you can spend money on making your product better, um,
Well, how's
that
this a question? What should we spend money on? Let's say if I'm like an artist and I've got a band, or I got someone selling jewelry or something. Should you can do social media yourself. You can do a lot of stuff yourself. What should you outsource? Like if you're being tight with your money, what should you spend money on for us, like as art in
mhm,
the arts world? Should it
mhm.
be someone to help us with branding and logo and a website? Is that the most important thing that, is taking us out of the skills that we can do ourselves?
Well, yeah, if you can do it yourself, if you can build your logo and build your website yourself, that's the best. Or if you can ask a friend to help you with that, then that would be the best way. Definitely spend your money on a website. A website is a little bit more expensive than we think these days. So because you have your hosting, you have your website domain. If you're going to be doing purchases, or if you have special features on the website, you have to pay for those special features. So you could run yourself $1,000 per year on hosting and maintaining your website, right?
Mm.
Um, so that would probably be my recommendation, is to really build out a nice website and potentially have it be able to take payment or take bookings, or, there's an email function. Maybe they can buy the music, right? Like literally download the music or something like that. So
Okay.
I'd spend my money there. Yeah. I would avoid, I mean, I wouldn't avoid social media. I think Google ads. So keyword searches, you can pay Google to, bring up your listing. Something like that would be better than Instagram. Instagram is not what it used to be in terms of marketing. So yeah, I'd be hesitant to spend money there. I would just post. And comment. Commenting is really
Right. I mean,
great.
you can, at least you can do that yourself. Like, yes,
Hmm.
I know
Right.
you
Yeah, you don't spend
can
money.
do
Yeah.
you can buy a more professional video advert, but yeah, I mean, I just constantly skip those, so I can't imagine them being very, very good. Okay,
Yeah,
another question,
exactly.
like, so you do meet like marketing campaigns and things for businesses and things, do you?
Yes. Yeah.
So what are some of the AI tools that you use now in your business, if any?
I was gonna say I don't love to use AI. Um, Maybe I'll use
Not,
it for like inspiration. I don't feel like it's authentic. I don't like to say
I
the word
wouldn't say
authentic. It's
not for content creation, not to make up ideas for you, but to like to collaborate ideas or to make some processes faster, or because there's a whole lot of things you can do to like to generate a whole bunch of keywords and then write articles based on those keywords, so that then Google will put you up higher on their, on the list and things like that. I'm just wondering, I'm
yeah.
sure that your industry is going to be, a lot of people are using AI in some ways.
Oh,
Not
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's great. Like, you can use ChatGPT or whatever, to create that content, and to, automation, not so much, but, if you're doing social media ads or something like that, or your website, there's some automations you can put on your website in terms of, sales. Like, for example, um, you might have discounts on certain products on certain days. Okay, so you can automate that. Things like with your customers' basket. There's lots of technology that can not push your customer, but encourage your customer to purchase, right? They say, oh, I saw that there's a product in your basket. Do
Mhm.
you want to still purchase it? Like that kind of thing. I think there is a big pushback creatively, and, in terms of like developing promotions and writing content from AI, or like, that kind of thing. But technology wise, like automation, social media ads, and yeah, like I said, like maintaining your website, those would be things that you could use as a small business.
Mhm.
We see in not necessarily in marketing, but in logistics and manufacturing, there's a lot of interesting things going on with technology and AI that isn't as difficult for creative people to digest. Yeah, I think when it comes to marketing, people are just so creative, right? And they see AI and they're like, no.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not going to
and
use it
I
to
would
write
be
a song or
cautious of,
nothing. Yeah.
yes, exactly. I would be cautious of AI picking up someone else's brand, because that's right. It's like a amalgamation of everything on the net, right? So, there might be an instance where it gives you something that is very similar to another company. So that would be something that you'd want to just be careful. You can still use it to generate content, but then just to check to make sure that, it's not sourced from somewhere that is related. Yeah, competitive. But yeah, for sure.
Well, everybody, I think it's 8 o'clock, so I think it's probably time to wrap it up. But that
Perfect.
was a very informative session, and your presentation was beautiful. And we thank you so
Oh,
much for joining us today. And I'm sure we're going to connect with you at another point. You have all kinds of skills to share. So, yeah, so I just wanted to remind you all that next week, same time, Tuesday at 6 p.m., we have Alan Gray Eyes presenting on grant and promotional writing. So hope to see you there. Please register on the Creative Manitoba website. Please help us share within the Northern Network, and we hope to see you there. Have a wonderful
well,
evening,
thank you so
everyone.
much. I enjoyed myself,
Thank you
and
so
I hope
much.
that I shared some knowledge. And yeah, if you have any questions or you want to chat about anything else, yeah, you can definitely reach out to me.
Thank you so much,
Great.
Shenuka.
Thank you.
That
Of
was
course,
great.
yeah.
All right, bye,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.